Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks for dropping by. Today, we're diving into the wild world of post-apocalyptic games. Now, let's get one thing straight. There are like 100 of these games out there if you dig deep enough. But instead of throwing a massive list at you, I've handpicked the real gems. These are the games that truly nail that end-of-the-world vibe. So, gear up and let's jump right into the Wasteland. For PC gamers, only Part 1 is available so far. But hey, it's just a matter of time before Part 2 makes its way over. Since we're talking post-apocalyptic vibes today and not diving deep into game plots, I'll steer clear of the storyline details. Let's be real, most of you already know the main premise and the controversies around the second part. Whether you think the story is pure genius or just pushing an agenda, that's for you to decide. Personally, I've got to give props to both games for nailing that zombie apocalypse atmosphere, delivering stunning visuals, and offering awesome gameplay that mixes stealth moments with epic action. Some folks joke that the whole gameplay is just stealthing in the bushes, but to me that's a weird take, especially when you see something like this on screen. My advice? Play both games and form your own opinion. Trust me, it'll mean way more than what you hear online, even from me. Let's talk about the Wasteland series, at least from the first to the third game. But honestly, you'll probably want to start with the second game since the first one is really old school and might not be everyone's cup of tea. Yep, it's another turn-based strategy game, and the premise is pretty straightforward. Global war breaks out, and now it's all about surviving the aftermath. Your main goal? Build a new society from the ashes of the old one. But hey, nobody's stopping you from terrorizing the survivors and becoming a ruthless tyrant. One of the standout features of this game is that every quest is non-linear, and your choices directly impact how the story unfolds. This won't be the only time in this video where I stack multiple projects in one spot, so get used to it. Both Death Stranding games deserve a mention, even though the second one hasn't dropped yet and is only set to release next year. Personally, I think it'll either be a big hit or a total flop. None of us can really know for sure. Judging by the first game, it's a unique experience with an unusual storyline and lore. It's a game many might have skipped because, at the start, nothing makes much sense. You've probably heard the phrase, courier simulator. Well, that's partially true. Your main job is to deliver cargo. You've got to manage the load properly so you don't wipe out on the first bump, and you have to plan the best route. The world and the concept of the apocalypse here are pretty unique. Hideo Kojima definitely knows how to surprise. If you're into that dark and gritty vibe, the Rage series has got you covered. The first game was my jam back in the day, just the right mix of grim atmosphere, seriousness, and a bit of dark humor. Plus, the whole focus on vehicles plays a major role in the game world, adding a unique twist. Now Rage 2 flips the script with a more vibrant, youthful energy. It's got all the colors of the rainbow, tons of shootouts, an open world, and a heavy dose of humor, though not always in the best taste. Which one to play? Totally up to you and what you're into. Some dig the fun, chaotic vibe, while others prefer the more serious tone. Either way, both games have their own strengths and weaknesses. The devs at Guerrilla Games nailed a unique take on the post-apocalypse in the Horizon series. Both games were Sony exclusives, but now you can play them on PC too. These are some of the most visually stunning games out there. The premise? Civilization has fallen, and the world is overrun by giant robots acting like wild animals. Some of these bots are a real threat to the heroine, but there are peaceful ones you can override to explore the world. The world itself is jaw-droppingly gorgeous. You'll be diving into quests, leveling up the heroine, and battling enemies. Even though these games come from different developers, I decided to group them together because they have a lot in common. In both games, you dive into worlds where humanity is long gone, and the main characters are badass android girls battling it out against robots. The lore and gameplay of both games also have some solid parallels. They're kind of like hack and slash games, but with a unique twist to the story. In Kenshi, you're thrown into a similar hardcore survival sim in a world where civilization has crumbled. At first glance, Kenshi seems pretty straightforward. You've got a massive open world to explore where you can trade, steal, rebel, start a gang, or even do some farming. But don't get too comfy. You could end up enslaved or on the dinner table of some cannibals. What makes Kenshi unique isn't just its jaw-dropping realism, it's the total freedom you have. The story is yours to build from scratch, and every playthrough can be radically different from the last. And don't expect any hand-holding here. You're not some chosen hero with limitless power. You're just as mortal as everyone else, and every choice you make has real consequences. Get ready for a more familiar take on the post-apocalypse in both Remnant games. Civilization has lost, and now the world is crawling with monsters. Both games are co-op shooters with RPG elements and hardcore difficulty, where you'll be dying over and over again. Perfect for co-op, but you can totally go solo if you're up for the challenge. Here's another classic take on the apocalypse, a world overrun by zombies. Days Gone is a story-driven open-world adventure where the hero's main ride is a motorcycle. You'll need to upgrade it to make it faster and tougher. One standout feature is the zombie horde mechanic. There are areas packed with hundreds of shambling undead, and your mission is to take them out as efficiently as possible, using the environment and your arsenal to your advantage. Resistance 3 is one of those games that often gets overlooked in lists like these, which to me is pretty strange because it actually fits this setting perfectly. And yeah, I didn't include the first and second parts in this video because they mainly cover the war between humans and the Chimera aliens. In the third installment, we're dealing with the aftermath of that war and a completely wrecked world where humanity has essentially lost. You'll play as former soldier Joseph Capelli, who's determined to put an end to this conflict. The main character's motivations are way more personal here. He's not trying to save humanity, but rather give his family a chance at a future. Regardless of what anyone says to me, the third part is hands down the best in the series, both in terms of gameplay and story, which is a significant step up from the previous games in the series. At first glance, it might seem like just another zombie game, but what sets it apart is the parkour mechanics. Fast-paced movement and beautifully choreographed combat are the main highlights of Dying Light. You've also got a progression system for both combat skills and parkour tricks. Personally, I vibed more with the atmosphere of the first game, but the second one totally grabs you with its open world and upgraded gameplay. The S.T.A.L.K.E.R series absolutely has to be on our list. There's the main trilogy, plus the second installment dropping soon. And let's not forget the epic mods from the S.T.A.L.K.E.R community, some of which don't just bump up the graphics on the old game, but actually turn it into a full-blown project with its own story and plot. Everyone has their own take on this series. Some are diehard fans, while others just don't get it. But one thing's for sure, this game is held in high regard worldwide. Personally, I recommend diving into the series yourself to see why it's loved and loathed in equal measure. If you're hunting for an open-world zombie apocalypse game with co-op play, there are a few choices out there, but my top pick has to be both State of Decay games. They're your classic zombie survival romp where you explore a vast open world, scavenge for resources, craft weapons and armor, and fend off the local walking dead. Here's the kicker. Surviving in this game requires teamwork. You can't just build an impenetrable fortress because resources will eventually run out. You'll need to keep exploring new territories and interact with other camps, all while keeping the zombie population in check. Another must-play co-op game is Generation Zero. This one's a blast with friends and throws you into an open world invaded by machines. Set in Sweden during the 80s, this game stands out with some serious perks: dynamic day and night cycles, unpredictable weather, challenging AI, ballistic simulation, and a highly engaging gameplay loop. If you're up for a solo survival challenge, The Long Dark is a must check out. But heads up, there's one major downside. It's not the gameplay, which is top-notch and unforgiving at times, but the story, which sadly isn't finished. Out of 5 episodes, only 4 are currently available. Gameplay-wise, it's a solid and atmospheric survival sim. Your main foes will be the harsh cold, hunger, and wild animals like bears and wolves. In terms of atmosphere, The Long Dark ranks among the best survival games out there, but the unfinished story is a significant bummer, especially if you're diving into the main plot. Unlike The Long Dark, the story in the Walking Dead series from Telltale Games is a complete package. As of now, it spans 4 seasons, each consisting of 5 episodes. Based on the comics, it follows Clementine, who evolves from a small, helpless girl into a brutal death machine. Seasons 1, 2, and 4 are straight-up must-play games for anyone who appreciates a solid storyline. Season 3 and the Michonne spin-off felt a bit weaker, but are still worth checking out. If you're into indie games, This one's a must-play. Get ready for a side-scrolling adventure where your main gig is to cruise through a post-apocalyptic world in a super unique vehicle. You'll need to keep your ride in top shape while tackling all sorts of obstacles and weather challenges, which have become way more dangerous since civilization took a nosedive. The deeper you dive into the game, the more cool details you'll uncover about your one-of-a-kind vessel. Another indie gem that's made waves is the hardcore isometric survival game known as Project Zomboid. Even though this game dropped into early access over 10 years ago, it's still getting tons of love from the devs and is constantly being updated. The real kicker of the game? It's brutal difficulty. Surviving in Project Zomboid isn't just tough, it's a serious grind. Most of the time, you won't make it past the first try or even the 20th. That's what hooks players in. It's a hardcore challenge that keeps you coming back for more. Alright, let's talk about a true legend that absolutely deserves a spot on our list. Half-Life 2 and Half-Life Alyx for VR. These games are a wild ride through a post-apocalyptic Eastern European world overrun by an alien race. Half-Life 2 isn't just a game. It's a groundbreaking experience that blends mind-blowing physics with a rich lore and storyline. The theories and debates among fans are still going strong. Half-Life 2 and its expansions are the stuff of legends in the gaming world, something every gamer should definitely check out. When diving into the post-apocalyptic setting, you gotta mention the Metro series. I'm not gonna rehash the events of Metro 2033 and Last Light for a simple reason. I played them ages ago and don't remember all the details. But let me tell you, Metro Exodus is firmly etched in my memory. It's got an absolutely insane atmosphere, offering a full-on journey across different corners of Russia, each with its own unique vibe and memorability. And don't even get me started on the epic story that can bring a tear to any dude's eye. The game isn't just about story and atmosphere though. The graphics and gameplay have been seriously upgraded, making the experience way more enjoyable. So if you haven't jumped into this series yet, it's definitely time to fix that. When it comes to post-apocalyptic settings, Fallout is a top contender. The backstory is kinda like Metro, nuclear war wrecking havoc worldwide. But the games are a different beast. For starters, Fallout is all about that open-world RPG life. Secondly, it's set in the good old USA. Thirdly, the time period gives a unique twist to weapons and gear. I'm sure everyone who's dived into this series has their favorite, whether it's New Vegas, Fallout 3, or Fallout 4. Maybe even the original Fallout or Fallout 2 holds a special place. No matter what, the series is legendary and definitely worth checking out. And since it's a Bethesda creation, it's not just the original content that shines, but also the massive flood of mods available for any taste and style. While many of us are probably waiting for a sequel to S.T.A.L.K.E.R, I'm personally not holding my breath. But if you're craving something with a similar vibe, you should definitely check this out. The chaos in this game, just like in S.T.A.L.K.E.R, stems from a tech disaster at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. However, gameplay here leans heavily on survival, with battles against mutants and soldiers plus a crafting system. And we're talking serious crafting, everything from weapons to the gear you wear. One cool feature is that the entire game world was created using 3D scanning of the actual Chernobyl exclusion zone, which adds some serious atmosphere and authenticity. The story's a strong point too. It's pretty solid and I personally enjoyed it. So if you're on the hunt for something with a S.T.A.L.K.E.R-esque setting, give this game a shot. Another game diving into the aftermath of a tech apocalypse, PIONER, set to drop this year. Unlike the previous game, this one drops you on a, let's say, island where you'll need to survive, dodge bizarre dangers, fend off strange mutants, and battle hostile factions. You can roll solo through the story or team up with friends in co-op mode. According to the devs, there's a bunch of modes to dive into, including both PvP and PvE activities. The visuals are seriously intriguing, which definitely pulls you in. I won't hype it up just yet though, still wary after the whole The Day Before fiasco. So let's just wait and hope for the best. Next up, we've got Crysis 2 and 3. There's no mention of the first one here because it's kind of like Resistance, another alien war where you can see its aftermath in the second and third games. I remember it like it was yesterday. Playing Crysis 2 for the first time, I was totally blown away by the wrecked New York City, the shattered Statue of Liberty, the messed up subway, and Times Square. But the third Crysis took it up a notch with its visuals, kicking off with an insanely overgrown city, choked with lush greenery that still looks absolutely stunning. And yeah, Crysis isn't just about mind-blowing graphics. It also has some pretty solid lore about the local aliens you're up against. So, if you're hunting for a seriously gorgeous post-apocalyptic game series, you definitely don't want to miss Crysis. When it comes to showcasing a stunning post-apocalyptic world, you can't skip over the first and second installments of The Division by Ubisoft. Much like in Crysis, the game lets you explore a visually impressive, albeit wrecked, New York City and several other American cities. The games don't have a cohesive storyline to speak of, but the root of the chaos is a virus, not the kind that turns people into mutants, but a virus that wiped out half the population. Consequently, the world is crawling with gang factions. Your mission? To stand up against them, whether you're flying solo or teaming up with friends in co-op mode, all while leveling up your gear and weapons. Oh, and the game also features various classes like Medic, Engineer, and Sniper. However, The Division isn't Ubisoft's first foray into the post-apocalyptic genre. Let's not forget about I Am Alive, which hit the scene way earlier. In this game, the horror of the world stems from a much more realistic event than in previous titles, an earthquake. You play as the main character whose mission is to track down his family. Although the game is set in a fictional city, it clearly resembles a post-apocalyptic Chicago. The standout feature of this game isn't just its stunning and grim visual style, but also its stamina meter, which depletes with almost every action, especially climbing. There's also a unique mechanic where you can use an empty pistol to intimidate enemies, a twist you don't see in many other games. Also worth mentioning is Mad Max. And no, it's not based on the movies of the same name. It tells its own story, which is pretty solid. The standout feature of this game is that survival in its world revolves around your ride. You'll need to keep a close eye on your baby and pimp it out. Given that the game focuses heavily on vehicle-based survival, you can expect some top-notch physics. But what's really interesting, in my opinion, is the combat system. I often found myself lost in the game for hours, wreaking havoc on marauders with maximum brutality and savagery. While the game may not be a masterpiece in the gaming industry, it's definitely worth playing through at least once. You gotta check out Enslaved Odyssey to the West. Initially released for consoles and later ported to PC, this game might remind you of Horizon from Sony, with its stunning, stylized world packed with robots that pose the main threat. Gameplay-wise, it's a solid action experience with enjoyable combat, character upgrades, parkour, and a straightforward but engaging story. Being an action game, it also features boss battles, some of which are pretty well designed. If you missed this gem, now's the time to fix that. But where things really get wild is in the post-apocalyptic setting of Mutant Year Zero: Road to Eden. In this game, humanity is long gone, replaced by mutated animals. It's a turn-based strategy game where you control a trio of mutants, each with their own unique skills. One's a blast enthusiast who specializes in explosives, another's a stealthy crossbow-wielding sneaky type, and the third is basically a walking tank armed with a shotgun. Each character comes with a set of passive and active abilities that you can customize as you progress through the game. Next up, we've got both Frostpunk games. Unlike the titles mentioned earlier, this is a city-building strategy where your main enemy is the relentless winter that swallowed the entire world. Essentially, you're the leader tasked with rebuilding your settlement and surviving. More specifically, you need to hang on for 45 days without losing too many lives. And wrapping up our list today are Atom RPG from 2018 and its sequel, Trudograd, from 2021. The game throws you into a post-apocalyptic wasteland after the US and Soviet Union went to war, and it didn't end well for either side. Your job? Survive in this harsh new world. You'll be exploring open wastelands, hunting for survival essentials, and digging up notes, journals, and clues to unravel a sinister conspiracy from those in power. Since the game is also a survival simulator, the everyday life of Soviet citizens offers chances to find valuable resources in the open world. There will be safe havens where you can get fed, watered, and rested, either for cash or by completing tasks.